we are up to the diff and the gearbox. Episode 3 of the Team Yokomo RO2.0 build. Hi guys, Brett here from Hearns Hobbies, and today we are doing episode 3 of the Team Yokomo RO2.0 build. And if you've been following this build, welcome back. And if you're new to this build, well, welcome, because this is probably some of the more intricate things to do on this one. We are up to the diff and the gearbox as we jump in. So far in the build, in episode 1 and 2, I'll show you what we've done here. We have got the chassis and the sub-assembly on the front here. We have got the steering bell crank. We have got the steering bell crank assembly in here, swinging all nice and breezy. Got the front shock tower in there, and the rear, the C and D blocks, rear arms and rear hubs in. Like I said, we've been following the manual step for step. Got the rear shock tower and wing mount and camber link modular setup ready to go. Now, the next step we are up to in the build, if we can just have a quick look at the instructions here, we are up to step 6, and we are still on bag number 3, and these are the parts we are using. So this is a fluid filled gear differential. Now we can also have the option of this car, if you're using consistently on low traction tracks, you can in fact put the ball diff straight from the options part list in, or you can in fact just use a gear diff. But like I said, we're going to build this one up as per the kit and get it racing as per the kit. So there's a couple of little tips that I'll be doing in this. Let's see, I haven't built many of these diffs because I usually do opt to run the ball diffs in my cars, but the RO2, let's get the gear diff underway. So we have the first thing that I will do. Okay guys, I'm going to get to the overhead here. Something that's not in the book and not a lot of people do or know about, but I do this anything from an 8th scale gear differential to 10th scale on-road. Anything that's got a fluid filled differential with blind holes. So these little holes here, where these tiny little screws go, if they don't have relief hole in the end here, I will drill them through. So I'll get a little drill bit and I will run it through. And what that does, that's in case you get a little drop of grease or extra silicone fluid from the diff build, it'll save you from stripping, because as the screw goes in, it gets a hydraulic lock and actually won't tighten, it'll just strip the thread out. So if you put a little relief hole in the very end of it without damaging the thread, it gives somewhere for the oil or the grease to come out if you've been a bit sloppy. So I've got my little God hand drill bits here. And the reason I like these, I don't necessarily use an electric drill for this, just a little pin vise that you can see here. And this is a 1.5mm drill bit. And I'm going to run it through these little holes. And it shouldn't take very much. They're usually not very big casts. You might have a couple of mil of material to move at the most. Making sure it's centered in the hole. Just winding it through and being very careful not to twist it and break the drill bit, and there you go. You can see here the drill bit has come through, making a little relief hole in there. Get the swarf off of the end of the drill bit and work your way around. Like I said, I've seen so many people, they can do it in a rush or just be a little bit sloppy. It only takes a drop of silicone oil to get in there, and A, it's really hard to get out because it's a blind hole. B, you just go, oh, it'll be alright, I'll screw it together, but it just gets a hydraulic lock and ruins the thread before it actually gets to tighten up. You can see here, it only takes in like 10 seconds per hole sort of thing. So I'm just drilling this one through. Last one. There we go. So you can see there I've just drilled through those little relief holes, and that'll give somewhere for the excess oil to come out if I've put it in. So I've just put the relief holes in the diff case. Now the drill can go away. And that is the last we use of that. Like I said, it's a simple little mod, and whether you're racing 8th scale, whatever it is, anything with a fluid filled diff, it's something that I like to do. It's just a bit of insurance and make it rebuildable. There's no reason that you should ever really have to change this diff case. I'm just having a look over here, a really good close look over, making sure that there's no flashing, no protrusions, because I want the diff gasket to obviously seal really nice. And typical of Yokomo's moldings, it is absolutely spot on. Okay, now we can get back to the instructions. And with most differentials you start from the outside in, so we will follow the book, and it's starting from the cap side, if you will. And I've got another little tidbit here that doesn't mention, got a little bit of lithium grease. Now what I do here is I actually put a little smear on the outdrive, and that's because there's no bush or bearing in here. It is just metal to plastic operation. Under normal diff circumstances that's fine, but like I said, I'm going for longevity and consistency. So all it's going to take is a little smear of grease, and you want something that's safe on the O-rings. You don't want to put too much because you're just going to make a mess and have to wipe it off everywhere, like so. You can put that in. You can see even that little smear was a touch too much. Lucky I've got my rag here that I will tidy it up with. Little bit of kitchen towel at the ready. Best to wipe it off now, because otherwise I'll be putting greasy fingerprints everywhere. Left and right outdrives are the same, so that's okay. Next we have to put the O-ring on. Now to seat the O-ring, I usually use a nut driver, because it will push it down nice and square without getting it. Obviously you want to make sure it's clean. If you've been using it on wheel nuts, just get your rag or your kitchen towel, pop it inside your tool and give it a little bit of a clean out, making sure there's no dirt and debris. You can see here there's a little bit of muck in there. Like I said, it is predominantly a wheel wrench, and I'll just use that to seat the O-ring in the case. Get it down nice and square. You can put a little bit of rubber grease if you have it, but in this case I think we're okay. Next is the shim. Then we put the retaining pin in, and that should just slide in the side here. These can sometimes be a little bit tricky. I might need pliers if I can't get my fat fingers in there. Got my little nippers here. Simple as that, and it should just fall together until you end up with an assembly like that. We'll zoom in a bit for you. You can see there, and you have to be careful because the pin can move quite freely, so keep it in an upright position, and you want to make sure the pin is as centered as possible. Otherwise when you go to put the gear on, it may not sit on the pin drive, because that will sit inside this bevel gear here. And you can see here, if the pin's not center, it won't seat properly and go together nicely. Okay, so that is the cap side done. Let's have a look at the gear side. Again, the same thing. Just going to put a little tiny little smear of grease on the outdrive. Sometimes on 8 scale buggies and so on and so forth, where it's a really demanding diff, they'll actually have a metal boss cast into the diff case, and they'll have a little recess in here to actually hold the grease. Not in 10 scale so much, nowhere near as demanding as the 8 scale buggy differentials. And again, now we've got the O-ring, and you can see why I use the wheel wrench, because it can be quite difficult to get it in there and seated. Excuse me if my head goes over the camera. Now you don't want to be picking up O-rings with your hobby knife if you can help it. We'll get it started on there. Push it down a little bit, and then like I said, we'll just put it down and seat it with our 7mm nut driver. Get it nice and seated in the case, nice and square. Again, we've got our big shim here, which helps seals and save any direct contact with the pin on O-ring. You can go ahead then and push it down, make sure it's all sitting nice, and then got to get this pin in. And this can be a little bit tricky. It even says in the manual that you sort of have to line it up. I'll zoom out here a little bit. So pretty much drop it in there. I'm going to sit it so it falls against the pin. So I've pretty much thrown it in there and it's fallen against the case and the pin, and if I rotate that slowly it should hopefully pick up the hole, which it has. You can see there it's gone sort of straight. Then I will get my pliers or tweezers or whatever, and hopefully, if I've done it right, it should just feed through nicely. There we go. Beautiful. And then, like I said, same with the other one, it's just about getting it central. And what I'm going to do now is get the gear on. I'm going to get the gear on this side, because this side is going to be sitting exactly like it is. Nice and central. Then I'm going to get my gear, put it down. I'm going to rest my finger on there while rotating the outdrive until it clicks, like so. Hear it click into place. Nice and seated. Double check with the outdrive, and it's just a little bit beyond flush. Like I said, it's really important that you just build it a little bit like a sandwich, layer upon layer. Next we have the cross pin section. So this one here requires the bevels and the shims. Now I'm going to load that up all at once, the cross pin. Beautiful tolerances here. And I'm sure the plastic gear sets that we sometimes use in the four-wheel drive buggies for stock racing can also be used in this differential, being it's the same from the two-wheel drive as well. Now the reason you would use plastic gear sets over the metal ones is just a reduction in weight and rotating mass. But we're here for a good time, not a long time, and for what we're doing, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. We put one shim on each of these bevels, like so. Just pick it up with you and put it on. Hold it all nice and square, otherwise they will pop off, and then line it up with your diff case. Like I said, you have to be sort of gentle and a little feel, watch what you're doing, and then sort of push it down into the mesh, separating the gears in the case. And at this point I'll usually put my index finger in the gear and spin the gears just to make sure that they're all sitting nice and meshing. And you can tell by that action that they're all nice and not mistimed, they're all meshing. Like I said, step by step. Now we can start introducing the oil. Diff oil is critical, and it is quite a tuning option. So into my oils bag again, as per the kit. And it gives you a measurement here saying, if I can bring it into the screen. Okay, looking at the instruction manual, we are looking at a level just above the cross pins, and there's no need to overfill it or underfill it. The main thing is you do your diffs consistency. So the level of the cross pin is where we want to be. So I'm going to go ahead now and start putting the oil in. That's 5,000 out of the kit, and I'll start by putting it down the side of the pins. I mean, it's all going to be filled up anyway, right? Some people even use vacuum pumps. Electric kits require that you weigh the amount of oil that goes in. So I know the previous generation Yokomos were in fact 1.3 grams of oil. So you would do it on tiny little scales. So I'm just going to get that in there and let that sit. At this point now, the instruction calls that you put the gear onto the top case, but I'm not going to do that because it's really hard to put this on and time it up with the screw holes. So traditionally what I will do is I will then, like I said, all the diff oil settled already. You don't want to go spinning the diff too much now, because you're just going to, before you get your oil level where you want it, There we go. It's right at the top of the cross pin there. And if you overfill it, it's fine. You can just dig a little bit out. Like I said, we don't run the risk now of any hydraulic lock because I drilled those little relief holes. I will put the gear in here and I will just rock it. Again, all I'm doing here is making sure that all the teeth are meshed. I'm not going to spin it up fast and fling oil everywhere. About a quarter of a turn. Everything is meshed and sitting, and I put my cross pin up and down, if you will, whatever way, and then that way you know when you marry up your case exactly where it's going to sit. Okay, now I'm going to get my ceramic. You can use Vaseline or anything for this. I like to put a little smear of grease, and this bit can be a little bit messy, onto the gasket. And the reason I do this is mainly for just serviceability. So these diffs, believe it or not, do get quite hot, and if it's been in there for say 3 months and lots of racing, the paper gasket can actually bond to the plastic, and then as soon as you try and service it, it will tear. Not that you shouldn't carry a spare anyway, but there should be no reason, if you put a little smear of grease on, which is a little bit easier said than done without making a big mess, you can generally reuse the gasket because it won't stick. Not only that, but the little smear of grease actually adds another layer of gasket, if you will. A little bit of squish to the gasket. We can get the gasket lined up on there, like so. Now it's a matter of marrying up the cross pins to the screws. Now I know my gear's facing up and down, like so. It's going to be right in the middle of the screw holes. Make sure that I've got my pins. You can tell where your pin is on the other side, the way your outdrive is facing, generally speaking. They're usually machined pretty square. Go ahead and offer that in, and it should sort of slide together as simply as that. Now we know our gears are meshed. Again, we're going to rock it just a tiny little bit to make sure it's all seated, which it seems to be. There's no lumpiness. Oops! And I've just knocked it over, which is devastating. Now everything's misaligned, mistimed and out of place. Diff oil doesn't spill anywhere, but don't be alarmed. We didn't spill any. The level's still going to be right. My pin's still nice and central. A handy little helper is a big chunk of blue tack. There we go. We've got the case down nice. At this point here, I'm going to put this grease away before I make any more mess. You can see my little white fingerprints over everything. What we're looking for here, I'll zoom in, is in fact a gap around the surface area here. You can see it's all nice and square and sitting flush. I can squeeze it together with my finger and I will rock it a little bit and make sure that we've got a nice operation, which we have. You don't want to spin it fast, but you don't want it lifting up or feeling lumpy, because that means that the gears are mistimed. Then we can go ahead and put our tiny little screws in, and you can see here that only, I think they're 2mm by 8 self-tappers in there. So that's why you have to be really cautious with these threads. And for that we use the 1.5mm 9-steps driver, which goes on. And this is the other important part. Like all the screws I've been showing you in the build, you don't want to just drive one home. You want to seat it. I'll undo it half a turn and work my way across. So next one is going to go 180 degrees across the face of the diff cap. Put it all the way down without tightening it, back half a turn, and so forth. And diffs are these funny things. Once you get them right, especially these gear diffs, they last for a long term serviceability wise. Especially in the entry level class, we'll be running at 21.5. There will be not a huge stress on this differential at all. Here we go. Last screw, half a turn. So I know now that all the screws are about half a turn from seating. At this point here, again, I will double check, and it feels beautiful. You can hear the gears. I'll hold the gear up to my microphone. It's all nice and smooth like clockwork. Feels really nice. You can feel the resistance from the 5000 diff oil in there. I can go ahead and tighten it. The tiny little screws, so you don't need to tighten them down massively. Just get them seated. Across the face. And you can see here it's actually squeezed a tiny little bit of diff fluid out, which is fine. Just working my way around. This is just double and triple checking. You'll feel them all come to a nice hard stop. And we know that there's going to be no fluid in the holes. Double and triple check, like I said. Because if you have a leaking diff, not only does it make a mess inside your gearbox and your car, but also gives really inconsistent feel, and it won't be doing its intended purpose of offering any resistance. I know I've checked these about 4 times now, but better to be safe than sorry. Cutting in the thread. That is perfect. That is all we want. And here we have the gear diff. Look at this bad boy. Perfect little unit here. This is going to offer, I dare say, years of trouble-free operation in 21.5 racing. There you go. That is the differential done. Now we can start assembling the gearbox. I suppose it's a transmission. It doesn't really change gears, does it? So again, it's quite a little complicated build. There's a little bit going on. You've got your idler shaft, idler gear shaft, and of course your bearings in there. Exploded view of the case. It shows you exactly what to go in, as well as all the part numbers. Okay, so gearbox cases. Got to cut these ones off the parts tree. Got my 9-step snippers in there, of course. Clean up any burrs. Got a dirty knife. Had it in the grease. No burrs or dags. At this point here, I'll usually offer the cases up and do a test fit. They should somewhat snap together like so. And you can see if there's any gaps or burrs. Like I said, I wouldn't expect it on a Yokomo. Absolutely perfect. I'm a little bit fussy here. And I will also use the grease I had before as a gearbox gasket. Because like I said, it does sort of snap together. You can hear that snapping. But I always like to put just a thin smear of grease or Vaseline around the diff case to stop any dirt getting in, acting exactly like a gasket. Okay, I'm going to start from the bottom. Let's put my diff in. And I'm going to put the diff in the same way as the instructions. I don't think it matters left or right. But, so we've got this side, and this case here is going to sit like this in the vehicle as per the instructions show. So they've got the screw heads on this side. Go ahead and put the diff in, snap it into the case. 15 by 10 bearing. Beautiful. And again, we'll just build it up like a sandwich. So go ahead. Funny to mention, it's actually got, I believe it's an alloy idler shaft, not what you'd expect to see in an entry-level kit. Usually you just get hardened steel, but it seems to be hard anodized aluminium in there, which is nice, lightweight from its big brother. Bearings will get in nice and smooth. I put this one in, put the shaft into the case again, just giving it a little spin as we go along. This one here, we've got a bearing that goes on the front of the idler, and that will drop into the case like so. This is a little bit tricky because I put the bearing on the right side. Yep, looks like I have to put the pin in while it's here. I won't be able to get my hand in otherwise, and it's a short pin in the transmission, nice and centralized, nice steel idler lay shaft gear, and then I'll go ahead and put the bearing on, and that should hold it in. Beautiful. And that is the transmission belt. Okay, got the bearing here, that's on the idler shaft, and the bearing on this side. Now, like I said, what I'm going to do is get out my grease again. I'm going to put a tiny amount on the gears, and while I'm at it, I'll make a little gasket for the case. Don't need to put heaps on the gears. You don't need to put any. This is just something that I like to do to make sure that I've got every insurance that it's going to last a long time, be nice and smooth. In fact, some would argue that the little smear of grease I'm putting on actually adds drag or resistance, but I'm not that fussed. I'd rather have a nice, quiet, smooth car than the ultimate in performance. Then I'm going to go ahead, get my finger dirty, and just drop on a little bit on this protruding edge on the case. Like I said, Vaseline's handy for this, or silicone if you've got ball diff silicone grease, because it's clear, so there's no mess. Just a little bit of gasket, like so. Tiny little bit on the gearbox molding. Then I should be able to snap this transmission case together and have ourselves an assembled gearbox. There we go. Nice snap. Beautiful Yokomo precision. There's not heaps of run out on the lay shaft, which is really nice. Sometimes certain manufacturers might require shimming there. Feels really good. Nice and smooth, and a beautiful diff operation. We are safe to say that we can seal this one up. We've got 3 by 10mm screws now. Where's my 2mm driver? It can go straight into the case. Oops, that's not my 2mm driver. Of course it's not. Where did I put my 2mm? It's always away. Can't see the forest for the trees. That's the round tip one. Somebody write in the comments, Brett, your 2mm driver's over there. There we go. Got it. The screws will only go in one side. All the same size, which is nice. Again, like anything that I've been doing, we're just gonna get them seated, and then we'll torque them up as we go along. Get them in, get them seated, unwind them a little bit, seat it, unwind it, quarter of a turn. We'll seat it, unwind it, and then we'll seat it and unwind it a quarter of a turn, and then we can go work our way around and torque it up. Again, you don't need to massively over tighten anything here. Everything pulls up nice, beautiful plastics, beautiful threads. There we go. That is the transmission case together. So we have done the diff and the gearbox. Okay, and we have emptied that bag, I believe. Let's clear my workspace. Biggest drawback with using the lithium grease is it puts smears everywhere. Okay, now I'm just going to quickly read my instructions, double check, yep, that's all the parts. Let's go forth. Next step, step number 8, motor plate, bag number 4. This should be pretty straightforward, as long as I can find my bag. Oh, there's a lot of goodies in this bag. Going to get a lot done this step. Let's get this open. Oh, we've got our slipper. We have got some ball ends, drive shafts, slipper, gearbox cases. Now this part, I'm actually going to have to run and get a okay. Here we go, guys. Here's all the parts bags, or part 4 bag out on the bench. Got a waterfall, we've got some screws, we've got some shims and our motor plate. Completely different motor plate to the SO3, being a different gearbox case. So we'll go ahead now. Oh, I just can't stop spinning it. It's bloody lovely, this gearbox. Okay, concentrate on what I'm doing. Oh, that slips over there. Oh, nice. Geez, that is such good engineering there from Yokomo. Everything just fits together so nice. I can see exactly why these are such a popular little build. Okay, so it's showing me the transmission in this orientation, what I've got in my hand, and the motor plate like so. Can go ahead and put my 3x8 screws in. Now I've got lots of screws everywhere, so I'll just offer the 3x8s over the, they're all the same size, 3x8. Nope, they're bigger. These are 3x10s. Here we go, shorter ones. Double check on the instruction. Again, just overlaying it. Yep, perfect size. Got my 3x8s. 2mm driver, which I've probably lost again in the Bermuda Triangle. That is the RC workbench. Go ahead and get this motor plate attached to the gearbox. And again with everything, not doing one screw up before I get the others seated. Get them all started and in. The threads on this kit are actually beautiful. They're not too tight, not too loose. I think some of the tightest, one of the tightest threaded kits I've ever built, and it's not necessarily a downside, but definitely made building a little bit more challenging, was a HB 8 scale buggy. It had the tightest threads going. But what I actually did was I actually cut all the threads in with a hand tap. And that was amazing. That made it really go together really nice. But I watched a lot of people resort to using power tools to build theirs. Beautiful. Now we have the slipper assembly, and the slipper assembly is a wonderful thing in this kit, but bear with me, I'm just going to get a spur gear. Okay guys, I am back. So like I said to you earlier, when I was going to build this car, I'm going to build it to go racing 21.5. Now to get the gear ratio that I want to run on this, I'm going to have to use a 69 tooth spur gear. The one that comes in the kit is the 84, and I'd say that's for either much faster motors or in fact brushed applications. This will be handy on my Works 91, so that's what I use on that, the 84. But on this car is a 69, and that will help me get down to the gear ratio that I require, which for 21.5, as I said, is about 6 to 1. There we go. There's the spur gear, and I'll go on overhead here, and you can see a size comparison between the 84 and the 69. There's like a massive difference, and that's going to be where the motor can sit in the motor screws. And if I tried to use this one, like for example, I would need to put like a 37 probably pinion gear on there. It would not fit in the motor mount. So this is why I'm resorting to the smaller spur gear. And with this one here, I think it will be about a 29 tooth pinion. Keep in mind the transmission ratio on this car here is 2.6 to 1. So how you work out your gearing is your spur gear divided by your motor pinion gear. So whatever that is, in this case it'll be 69 divided by 28, and then you times that by 2.6, and that gives you your final drive ratio. Anyway, we'll touch on that more probably in the overview or towards the end of the build when I show you the electronics that I'm putting in it. So we've got the motor plate on. Now it's time to assemble the slipper assembly. We've got our slipper pads. Now these sort of somewhat click into the gear. And even though it's only a 21.5, it's still a critical part of tuning. It might not be a two-wheel drive modified running big horsepower, but slippers really do make the car, they transform it over the bumps and driveline wise. These two inner and outer pressure plates are both the same. There's no shim that goes behind here that sits down. Just have to get that located on the shaft, like so. The orientation of the spur gear, get that one right. The big recess on the outside, that goes over the shaft, making sure your slipper pads don't move. Being all new, it should pretty much lock in. And then your outer pressure plate coming down, making sure that everything's aligned. Like I said, just a layer upon layer. There's no secret steps here. Oh, a secret step, here we go. I always pre-tension or pre-compress the slipper springs, and I'll use that using my soft jaw pliers and the ball cup, and I'll just squeeze it a few times, and that preloads the spring. Sometimes they can either be too long or just not run in, and it saves you locking it down on the shaft. Otherwise the spring tension does change. Definitely your first few uses. Then we have got the spring collar, which is beautiful, and then we have our slipper nut, which is a 7mm driver, and I had that out from the O-rings on the diff. Hold that with your finger. That's a nylock, so it's a little bit of thread on there. Hold the spur gear and it should all hold the pressure plate with your thumb, and it should start to lock down. Now it gives you a measurement in the book of 1mm, but that's a very brief. It really depends what surface you're running, what motor, etc, etc. But yeah, usually I'll start by tightening it up. I won't compress it all the way, but I'll start by tightening it up and undo it a couple of times, and it should just go like that. Always start with it looser rather than tighter, especially if you're using a ball diff, because then you have to run your ball diff in before you do your slipper. And there's a transmission and slipper assembly on with the 69 tooth spur gear. Perfect. Beautiful engineering by Yokomo. Going to give years of trouble-free operation, I'm sure. Now, next step in the book. This is where we can get to our previous assembled part. Looks like we can now put our shock tower onto the transmission. Oh, just in there. Okay, I was expecting it to sort of lock into place, but it just goes right through the sway bar mount into there. So these are nice long screws, 3x12s. 3x12s in like that. Sorry. There we go. And you can see there, that's how it's going to sit in the vehicle. Okay, so I got my, I think it's my 12mm screws, put it over here. Yep, that's them. Get another one of those bad boys, get my 2mm driver. We can set about getting this on to the transmission. Sort of goes together that easy, you don't realize that you're actually like putting it together. It sort of just falls together. You feel like you haven't got anywhere, but it's actually going together. Usually I have to fight with cars a lot more. Torque it up. There we go, perfect. And then we have to put one 18mm screw in, which is this one here, 18mm, and it goes from one side of the wing mount to the other. And that will clamp in the wing mount to the transmission, making it all super strong. And if you wanted extra security, you could actually put a longer bolt with a nylock on there, but 10th scale wouldn't really be necessary. There we go. Okay, now we can start offering this up to the chassis, and I need 10mm countersunk screws. I need 4 of those, which are these ones, and we can marry the gearbox to the chassis, and it's starting to look just a little bit like a buggy. A little bit awkward to do this step on camera. With 2 in, it's much easier to handle. Obviously everything's all lined up. And we are looking good, guys. I hope you're enjoying this build. I love building Yokomo. There is no better car for a first timer to build than a Yokomo. I'd say it's easier to build in many respects than a Tamiya. Okay, there's a lot more going on, but the fit and finish, engineering, fasteners involved are all a much higher quality. Perfect. Gearbox on. Buggy with arms flapping in the breeze. Now we have got some drive shafts. Let's have a close look at these drive shafts. Now these have been pre-assembled for us. When I did the RO1, I couldn't believe the shocks and the turnbuckles were already assembled for us too. Now they're already assembled, but they do give a complete blow up, if you will, on how to service them moving forward. You can see on these buggy ones, sorry, my camera's moving around. You can see on these buggy ones there's no lock-in screw or anything like that that needs Loctiting, like I would do on an on-road car if they come pre-assembled. And it shows you the parts needed to get it all in. So you've got your drive pin, your locking collar, all the spare parts when you come time to rebuild. What I will do though, they are a bit dry. I mean, they've been assembled with, I think, a little bit of oil. I'm actually going to, just a little bit of security here. Again, I'm going to come at them with my lithium grease. And it's always better to put too much on and then wipe it off, because you sort of have to pack it in because you're not assembling it. If I was assembling it myself, it would be a matter of just putting a little bit of grease on each component as it goes together. But as it's together, so I'm sort of just running my finger down and pressing it in, no different to packing a rear wheel bearing or a roller bearing on a full-size car, just squeezing it in. That one's nice and done. Where's my rag gone? Oh, that's all done. And then I'm going to wipe off all the excess, because it's all where we need it is actually inside on the barrel. When I wipe this all off, there you go, because they actually do affect the suspension and the drivability of the car. We've just got a really thin layer of grease there, but hear that? Nothing. If I get this one, can you hear that? We've got that metal on metal noise. This one, absolutely nothing. There you go. Little smear of lithium grease. I'll go ahead and do the other one as well. I should have done it while my hand was dirty. And then, like I said, I'll just work on pressing it into the drive shaft. CV, constant velocity. Now they even come on an entry-level kit. Got that one greased. Work it through. Again, the same, absolutely zero noise, no metal to metal contact. And I'll wipe off all the excess. Little bits like that that can actually not only improve your build and performance of the car without really knowing, but actually make it much cheaper to run, because these drive shafts, if you look after them, will last a long time. If you don't look after them, and you were racing modified, for example, where you've got very high demands and high speeds on the car, you can destroy them like in a month, let's say. In a couple of race meetings, they can be destroyed because they've just worn out. Okay, now we've got 2 1/2 mil shims behind the axle, which is really good. We've got a bit of track width adjustment here on the car. These ones here utilizing the 69 mil dog bone. And I'm sure, much like its bigger brother, we could probably put the shorter arms on this car, the RS3, for really low traction scenarios. There we go. I'll assemble this one. I'll assemble this one, and then I think, doesn't show me yet, but get to press it into the hub. So I dare say before long we're going to start having some turnbuckles to build. Otherwise these drive shafts are going to be flopping around. The bearings, there is no need to apply any grease. They are factory lubricated. Some people in on-road racing circles, for example, where there's probably a high demand on your bearings, can in fact flush the factory grease out and use oil. However, in an off-road application, I usually leave them, and then usually after a couple of months I'll replace them actually with rubber sealed bearings, just for a bit of longevity. Not so much performance. The rubber seal ones do offer a higher resistance, if you will, but I'd like consistent performance and smooth running. There we go. Drive shafts in the hubs. In the out drives in the car. Next page in the instructions. Where are we getting to? Haha, see, I told you we wouldn't be far away from doing turnbuckles. And unlike the RO1.0, these ones are not assembled. Now these are steel turnbuckles, a little bit different to the SO3 ones, look a little bit lighter duty. You could probably go ahead and put those ones on, but like I said, I'm building this stock and running it. And you will see there is a tiny little groove. If I can clean my knife again. Modelers will be freaking that I've been using grease on my knife, my hobby knife. There's a little tiny groove here. If I can get, let's see how close I can get here, because I need to go close. Here we go. There is the turnbuckle in its length. That tiny little groove here, that is which direction you put it into the car, which way you have it facing. Now generally speaking, I will put these all on the right side of the car. That way when you come to adjust a turnbuckle, you'll be adjusting like forward, will be shortening, and going backwards will be lengthening for say. If you've got left and right, front and back all mixed up, you'll get yourself confused when you come to do your wheel alignment, camber and toe adjustments. So it doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong way which way you put them on, but put them on all in the same way is my advice to you. Now, there was a little tool that came in this kit, off this parts tree here, and this is your ball cup assembly tool. Now what that does is that goes right on the end of your ball cup, so you don't have to grab it with the pliers or damage it, and then you put your 7mm driver on there, and that helps you wind it together like so. Now when I do these, again, a little bit of Vaseline is fine, clear grease, but I've got this one on hand. I'm going to use just a dot of my lithium grease just to aid in the assembly of, and then I'm going to grab it with my soft jaw pliers, and I'm going to wind it all the way on until there's no thread showing, and then all the way back. Nice and easy. Like I said, these are boring parts. People hate this part of the build. I don't mind it. All the way till it stops, and then we'll go back 5 half turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'll be our starting point, and I'll do exactly the same side with the other. Just going to put a little dot of grease, ball cup here, and this side will be reverse thread, so don't let that catch you out. One side is conventional thread and one side is left-hand thread. So the side with the line in it is the conventional thread, the side without the line is reverse thread. So you can see I'm actually undoing that to do it up, and that's how you get that turnbuckle action. Again, do it all the way up till there's no thread remain, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half turns. There you go. And that could not be easier. Now, if you don't have verniers to measure them, there is in fact over the book here, there's a 1-to-1 scale application. You can see here that it is actually too long what I've assembled. So like I said, I like to do them all the way up and then undo them, but for this case let's go from the length in the book. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 6 half turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like so. We'll overlay that in the book, and it is still, as you can see, a little bit too long. Again, like I said, this is not a fast part of the build. Some people even do this with power tools, not looking at UTFG, making sure I'm going the right way. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. And that just keeps the thread even in the turnbuckle itself. And that to me is pretty much spot on. It does also give you the measurement there, 29.5. So if you've got your vernier calipers, you just whiz that in there. But let's just get that at the starting point. It'll have a full wheel alignment at the end anyway. They're exactly 180 degrees parallel. Like so. There you go. That is one turnbuckle built, and you can see why people hate it. But once you build it right, a little bit of grease, and that way when the balls are on the car, you just use your turnbuckle wrench to open it or close it to get your adjustment. They never have to come off again unless you break it or replacing the ball cubs. Okay guys, rear turnbuckles built and to the right length. No damage, using the tools. Like I said, the soft jaw pliers are amazing. Okay, now we have got to put our camber link on. Wasn't super clear here, but we've got, it is now that I'm looking at it, we've got 22mm screws. These ones here that drop down from the top of the, in behind the wing mount there, that lock on the camber link onto the rear of the car. So let me get my long screws out, which are right here, 22mm, correct. Let me get the rear camber link, and it's showing the balls going up. And it just slots in like a cassette. Wow, that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome there by Yokomo. We'll get this one done. Once I pop these turnbuckles on, I think this will be the end of episode 3. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's not looking completely like a buggy. Now this is where your little ball end's going to have to come in, because at the top here, here we go, had to drop the screw in. I'm actually going to use a ball head Allen key on this one because there's a little bit of angle to get around the wing mount, and I want to make sure that it's going in nice and straight. Drop it down all the way in, get it lined up like so. There we go. Much easier with the 9 steps ball end. Gives you just that little bit of angle. You can see here the angle that I'm having to use on my, let me zoom out a little bit for you. The angle that I'm having to, and my drive shaft falls out. And the bearing falls out. I'll find that one in a minute. Okay, where were we? I was actually showing you the angle that you have your tool at. So that's why you do have ball-ended ones. In the rare scenario that you have a little bit of angle or something to get around, perfect example in this case, and the ball end tip is a perfect example. Show you a little bit of the difference, super zoomed up. That is the ball end one as opposed to the square tip. Now you want to avoid using the ball end one because there's much less surface area in the screw, so the screw gets worn quicker, and the tool does too. But when you have to use it, it's a much better option than trying to jam the square one in there, because you either won't get the screw in straight or you will snap your hex driver. Neither of two are the ideal option. Just retorquing these ones. Like I said, going into plastic, you just have to get the torque right. Coming in and out just a couple times. And you can really feel when it's pulled up. There you go. You can go ahead and put this drive shaft in. Like I said, left and right are both the same, but I want all the lines on the turnbuckles the same. Shouldn't need any tools here to do this. Just push it down onto your pit mat. A nice snapping sound, and there you have the rear end. Go ahead and put this one in. Offer that into the out drive, making sure the line for the turnbuckle is facing the right way. Put the inner one, outer one. There we go. There we have the rear end of the buggy. That concludes, what have we got here? Step number 11 on page number 10 of the build. And the next one will be the waterfall and battery mounts as we move forward. So we will do that one in the next installment of this episode. This has been episode 3, and you have been watching me, Brett from Hearns Hobbies, build up the entry-level Yokomo RO2.0. I hope you've enjoyed the build, and I look forward to bringing you more. Thanks for watching.